for the last 6 or 7 years, sanctions have been really a dominant factor in U.S.-Russian relations, driven first over U.S. and European Union concern about Russia's intervention in eastern Ukraine and Crimea back in 2014, and then over the last couple of years also very much focused on Russia's intervention in the 2016 U.S. election and potential intervention in future U.S. elections. Broadly speaking, at this point, sanctions are probably best understood as trying to accomplish 2 things. First thing is just to put some economic pressure on Russia and slow its rate of growth so that Russia has less resources to challenge the United States. And second is to try to drive a wedge between President Putin and the elites he depends on for his rule. We haven't actually seen a lot of success in driving that wedge. If anything, I think you've seen the oligarchs who have been sanctioned draw closer to Putin, and Putin has tried to bail them out. At an economic level, there have been some impacts, bigger impacts for the European Union, but I think a lot of the impact has really been, political. I mean, this has become a dominant issue politically in the U.S.-Russia relationship. Well, you saw some initial impacts, dragged out over a couple of years. We have seen Russia pretty effectively adapt to the sanctions. As an American policymaker involved in the first round of Russian sanctions back in 2014, I might have hoped Russia would be less successful in adapting to them. But the fact of the matter is that Russia over the last couple of years has really focused on shoring up its fiscal position, rebuilding its sovereign reserves, promoting energy development in areas of Russia's energy sector that aren't affected by sanctions. And as a result, while you, in 2014, 2015, 2016, did see sanctions cut 1% or 2% off of Russian GDP, and did force the Russian sovereign to really spend down a lot of reserves to help compensate for the effects of the sanctions. The last couple of years, because Russia has kind of smartly adapted, you've seen the economy return to modest growth. You've seen Russia pretty much fully rebuild its sovereign reserves to the pre-sanctions period. And so you've seen them really adapt to compensate for those fiscal losses that they had back in the kind of 2014, 2015 period. The U.S. now has sanctions on Russia for many, many purposes. For many of the policymakers here in Washington, these have all become kind of interconnected and jumbled, and that's why the U.S. Treasury has taken to just calling them sanctions on Russia's malign activities. And as long as our sanctions are kind of jumbled and across many different policy issues, it's hard to see a path towards unwinding them. I think we're likely to see continuation of the status quo or an escalation in sanctions rather than any kind of reduction in sanctions.